Dr. Shami, it's Bill Cousins. Can you see and hear me? Can you see and hear me?
I can.
I haven't seen you in a while. This is my doctor, everybody, Dr. Shami. Say hello. You have a room full of people here, and you are being we are being followed by our Facebook friends, the Less Cancer community, and we are so glad you are here. I want you to tell our visitors today and those tuning in at home a little bit about what you do, who you are, and I'm going to turn it over to you right now.
Thank you, Bill. First of all, I want to say it's an absolute pleasure to be speaking to you all on this important topic. And I'm sorry not to be there in person, but I feel honored to be talking to you remotely. My name is Vanessa Shami. I am one of the gastroenterologists at the University of Virginia. And I subspecialize in what's called endoscopic ultrasound. Endoscopic ultrasound is a procedure where we use an endoscope that has ultrasound capabilities. And the important thing about that is we're able to see across the GI wall and into surrounding organs. So it allows us to target organs such as, conveniently, the pancreas. And not only can we look at these lesions, we can also biopsy things. So if we see a tumor or a mass or a cyst in an organ, we can target it. So today what I'm going to talk to you guys about is pancreatic cancer screening. When I first got to the University of Virginia in 1992, believe it or not, for training, I've really seen an evolution in how we approach cancers. Back then, there was a mumbling of colon cancer screening, and we used to do these short, flexible sigmoidoscopes to look at the left side of the colon, and if somebody had a colon polyp, then we would proceed to do a colonoscopy. As time went on, we acquired information. We realized that we were missing lots of right-sided colon cancers. So then colonoscopy became the screening test of choice. And, that's extremely important because then came out a New England Journal article that said, we actually made a difference in the outcomes of people with colon cancer. And I honestly see the same trajectory for pancreatic cancer screening. So, as many of you are aware, pancreatic cancer is the third leading cause of death. It used to be the fourth, and now it looks like it's about the third. And that's going to increase over time because we're seeing more and more pancreatic cancer. This past year, there were over 50,000 new cases diagnosed and over 40,000 deaths related to pancreatic cancer. So we really have room for improvement on this cancer that's actually increasing in incidence. So the thing about pancreatic cancer that's difficult is that by the time somebody's symptomatic, it's advanced. So when you diagnose somebody, there's less than a 1 in 5 chance that they are resectable or that it can be removed completely. And of that group, only 10% of people have a long-term, greater than 5-year survival. So that's just the minority of people. So the goal of pancreatic cancer screening is really to find tumors that are resectable when they're smaller, so asymptomatic, or better yet, to find precursors so we can target them prior to them developing into pancreatic cancer. So because pancreatic cancer is not as common as, just say colon cancer, it affects probably 1.5% of the population, we can't mass screen everyone. So what we've been doing is targeting a specific group of patients. And those patients are people who have family histories of pancreatic cancer. And this is defined as somebody who has 2 first-degree relatives who've had pancreatic cancer. It's extremely important to also realize that the more family members you have with pancreatic cancer, the higher the chances are that you will have pancreatic cancer as you get older. The other thing is age matters. So the younger the person is in your family with pancreatic cancer, again, the higher the likelihood that you may contract pancreatic cancer. Another important group are those with genetic predispositions. So people, you guys have all heard of BRCA1 and 2. Angelina Jolie brought that to light, people who have increased risk of breast cancer. Well, interestingly enough, they also have an increased risk of pancreatic cancer. Instead of 1.5%, it goes up to 5%. So these are the groups that we're targeting, and there's other genetic predispositions. There's something called familial adenomatous polyposis and Lynch syndrome, and these are associated with increased colon cancer, but they can also be associated with increased pancreatic cancer. So these are important populations for us to target. So what are the two best modalities that we have now in 2018 for pancreatic cancer screening? Well, one of them is MRI, which is an imaging study, and the other one is the endoscopic ultrasound, which is what I explained to you. You do an internal ultrasound to look at organs, and we can take a really good look at the pancreas. And not only can we look at it, we can also sample anything if we see that's worrisome. So that's the important thing about it. So you can sample and you can see. And both of these tests together are better than one alone. So what kind of things are we looking for? I mean, we're not just doing these tests. We're looking for specific lesions. We're looking for cysts, because we know cysts, they're called intraductal papillary mucinous neoplasms, or IPMN for short, because it's very long to say. They're precancerous lesions, and when we see these precancerous lesions, we follow people extremely closely. And we know people with pancreatic cancer family histories are more apt to develop these cysts. Also, we're looking for very, very small tumors that you may not detect on cross-sectional imaging, such as CT or MRI. So those are the things that we're looking for when we're screening. So do we have any official guidelines in 2018? And the answer is no. We don't have any official guidelines, believe it or not. But fortunately, thanks to Marcia Canto at Johns Hopkins, she came up with the International Cancer of the Pancreas Screening, or the CAPS Consortium, in 2010. And they really helped us organize global pancreatic cancer screening. And what they found out, and their results are all published in Gut in 2013, is that, endoscopic ultrasound is a good test to screen people. They also found, the majority of people in that consortium, that MRI is good as well. And they came up with a consensus that probably if somebody has a normal pancreas, but they have risk factors, so they either have a family history or a genetic predisposition, they should have one of these tests every 12 months. And that kind of 12-month mark is kind of arbitrary, but that's what they came up with. So again, you do endoscopic ultrasound and MRI every 12 months. Now, if you find something high risk, such as something that looks solid or cystic, then obviously the interval would be shorter, or you would go ahead and biopsy that person. At the University of Virginia, we're very lucky in that we have Kathleen Hayden, who spoke to you guys last year, who runs our high-risk clinic. And not only is she in charge of coordinating these examinations with patients, but we're lucky enough that she talks to them about risk factors for pancreatic cancer. She talks to them about obesity, diabetes, and smoking, to name a few. So there are many CAPS trials, like I said, the consortium CAPS trials coming down the road, and so we're going to have a lot more data on pancreatic cancer screening and how we should manage patients. Now, let's sit back and let's assume in an ideal world, wouldn't it be great if we could detect pancreatic cancers prior to seeing them on imaging studies? Because we already know that pancreatic cancer is a pretty deadly disease, so why not target the disease before it becomes a cancer? And this is where we really need to increase funding in pancreatic cancer research so that we can encourage and facilitate research in this area. There was an exciting new paper in Science last month where they had a blood test in patients with 8 different cancers, and one of them was pancreatic cancer. And what they found was that the test was positive in a median of 70% of people with one of those 8 types of cancers. Again, pancreatic cancer being one of them. So while this is not ready for prime time, it just shows you that blood tests are being looked at, and it would be extremely exciting if we could find one that worked. Now, imagine going to your doctor's office, getting a blood sample, and having them tell you, you know what, you have a cancer that is undetectable on an imaging study, but we know with the blood test. Now, that would be the ideal scenario. So lastly, I really want to say it's important to point out that many insurance companies, although they're getting better, do not necessarily recognize the need for pancreatic cancer screening in high-risk populations. Or they will go ahead and cover one test, such as the endoscopic ultrasound, but not the MRI. And that's the scenario we find most of, that they cover the endoscopic ultrasound, but not the MRI. Even though the endoscopic ultrasound will allow you to biopsy, this test does require, sedation. So it is a procedure. So I really want to put out there, it's very important for us to recognize how important these tests are to the future of many of these patients. So really, pancreatic cancer screening in high-risk individuals should be regarded similarly to the performance of colonoscopy for colorectal cancer screening, and should really be covered by insurance companies. So we really need heightened public and healthcare awareness of the option to screen high-risk patients for pancreatic cancer. This is extremely important. We need to encourage funding for research to come up with blood tests that would allow direction of lesions or detection of lesions prior to being visible on cross-sectional imaging. And we really need to encourage insurance companies to really be mandated to provide screening in patients identified to be high risk. It would be great to make pancreatic cancer, just like colorectal cancer, a curable and, if not, preventable disease. So with that, I want to thank you for your time.
Hang on there, doctor. We are so grateful you're here today. Kathleen, can you stand up a second? We have something for you here. I don't know if you can see me, but we wanted to recognize your good work. And Kathleen, who is amazing, as you say, she's going to give this to you. Kathleen presented last year, and as Dr. Shami told you, she is really the go-between explainer between doctors and people that are high risk. And so I, from last year, discovered I'm high risk. And when I went to see Dr. Shami, after I'd been to see Kathleen, they did one of these ultrasounds on me, and they were able to look at these neoplasms, these what they call pancreatic cysts, on my own pancreas. But the thing that called attention to this was the fact that I was high risk. I came from a family of people with pancreatic cancer. My sister died of pancreatic cancer, and I was overweight. So because of this experience, it really helped me in my life and changed me, and now the University of Virginia follows me, and they do a spectacular job. I love sharing this information. I share it writing, I share it online, I'm sharing it today because there's so much hope now for the people that I love that didn't have hope for pancreatic cancer. And they do extraordinary things. So I'm so grateful to your whole University of Virginia team. I can't thank you enough. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Bill, so much.
You're the best.
And thank you, Kathleen, for everything you do.
Yeah. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you. Thanks again.